Welcome to the Ideology of Inclusion, Architecture of the HOHOKAM and SALADO Cultures. Today I will be presenting my research on the prehistoric American Southwestern inhabitants and their emphasis on inclusion and diversity in their communities. Specifically, I will be discussing how the architecture of this period reflects their socially inclusive and interactive nature with neighboring and emigrating cultures. The prehistoric American Southwest was home to a diverse group of cultures, each possessing their own unique identities and customs. However, despite their differences, evidence shows that these communities exhibited an emphasis on inclusion. This is likely due to their proximity to a variety of other cultures and their need to interact and coexist with them. In terms of architecture, public buildings and spaces were built to integrate a diverse population in a peaceful and inclusive way. For example, many HOHOKAM classic period sites contain large ball courts surrounded by tiered seating for spectators. These ball courts were used for a ritualistic ball game that was an important part of HOHOKAM culture. The seating arrangements were designed to accommodate a large number of people from different communities, fostering social interaction and community building. Additionally, platform mounds were another common architectural feature of the prehistoric American Southwest. These raised, flat-topped platforms were used for ceremonial purposes and could reach heights of up to 30 feet. Platform mounds were often constructed using a combination of adobe, stone, and other materials and could be several stories high. They were typically located near public buildings and plazas, serving as focal point for community gatherings and events, and were accessible to all members of the community. This highlights the importance of inclusivity and community building in prehistoric Southwestern cultures. In the conclusion, we will discuss how the prehistoric American Southwestern inhabitants were a diverse group of cultures, yet evidence shows that they exhibited an emphasis on inclusion due to their proximity to a variety of other cultures. The architecture of this period reflects their socially inclusive and interactive nature with neighboring and emigrating cultures, as public buildings and spaces were built to integrate a diverse population in a peaceful and inclusive way. The prehistoric cultures in the Phoenix and Tonto basins of Arizona around 1200 CE primarily consisted of the HOHOKAM and the SALADO cultures. As Christopher Schwartz writes in a contextual analysis of ritual fauna and socially integrative architecture in the Tonto Basin, both cultures had complex societies and demonstrated remarkable adaptations to the harsh desert environments in which they lived. Despite their sophistication, however, both cultures appear to have mysteriously declined around the mid-15th century. Act 1. Background information on the prehistoric American Southwest cultures in the Phoenix and Tonto basins and their inhabitants. HOHOKAM, farmers of the desert. The term HOHOKAM, derived from the Piman language, translates to all used up, exhausted, or those who have gone. It's used by archaeologists to identify the ancient farming civilizations of southern Arizona's deserts. The HOHOKAM inhabited areas along the Gila and Salt rivers in the Phoenix Basin, southern Arizona along the Santa Cruz and San Pedro rivers, and northwards along the lower Verde River and along the New and Agua Fria rivers. The reach of the HOHOKAM was even greater, with their architectural style and artifacts found as north as Flagstaff, Arizona, south into northern Sonora, Mexico, and east into southwestern New Mexico. Archaeologist Emil Horry described the HOHOKAM as masters of the desert. Their culture thrived from the beginning of the Common Era until around 1450 AD, just a century before the arrival of Spanish explorers in the Southwest. During this period, they achieved remarkable feats, notably the creation of extensive irrigation canals along the Salt and Gila rivers. These were the largest and most sophisticated irrigation systems in the New World, north of Peru, surpassing even the complex societies of Mesoamerica. These canals were accompanied by large villages covering hundreds of acres and housing several hundred people. The villages featured impressive public works, including ball courts and small, low circular mounds of earth in the early stages, replaced later by larger rectangular platform mounds of earth, rock, and adobe, topped with structures and courtyards. HOHOKAM villages stood out in the ancient Southwest for their longevity. Unlike ancient Pueblo towns that were often deserted after a few decades, some HOHOKAM villages were continuously inhabited for 1,500 years or more. These villages also displayed a hierarchical societal structure. The HOHOKAM represented one of the largest and most complex societies in the Southwest. At their cultural zenith during the Classic period, from the 1100s through the 1400s AD, tens of thousands of HOHOKAM people lived in large villages spread across the Phoenix Basin. Their farming techniques allowed them to successfully cultivate crops in the same locations for hundreds of years, leading to a large, well-structured, and prosperous society. Archaeologists largely concur that the HOHOKAM archaeological culture is defined by a set of features, including red-on-buff and red-on-brown decorated pottery, shell jewelry, plaza-oriented villages, and intricate irrigation systems. Throughout much of the HOHOKAM Classic period, individuals constructed their homes above ground within walled compounds, crafted animal-shaped figurines, and built platform mounds as public structures. The HOHOKAM organized their villages to separate and coordinate different activities. Houses clustered into residential areas. To keep the villages neat, the HOHOKAM disposed of trash in pits and piles within specific areas. They used large open areas in the village for messy activities, including the use of large earth ovens, hornos. Hornos measured 6 to 10 feet across and 6 to 8 feet in depth, and were used to pit bake the hearts of agave plants and other foods such as corn and possibly squash. Families lived in single-room structures that surrounded rectangular courtyards where daily activities took place. Each room would house a nuclear family. The families joined in these courtyard groups were closely related and formed an extended family unit. The HOHOKAM are generally regarded as a Native American culture from the Southwest, but they also have strong connections to Mesoamerican cultures, particularly those in Mexico. HOHOKAM platform mounds bear similarities to those constructed and utilized by groups like the Toltec, Aztec, and Maya in Mexico. Despite architectural differences, ball courts also demonstrate a clear cultural link with Mesoamerican ideologies. The Salado. The term Salado originates from the Spanish name Rio Salado, or Salt River, which flows from the White Mountains in eastern Arizona through the Tonto Basin, merging with the Gila River in central Arizona. Salado refers to a prehistoric cultural community that resided in the Tonto Basin from Common Era 1250 to 1450. The Tonto Basin is located on the northern periphery of the HOHOKAM core area that encompasses the confluence of the Salt and Gila rivers in the Phoenix Basin. The Tonto Basin region is generally classified as HOHOKAM, yet it displays elements from the nearby Sinagua and Puebloan territories. The Salado people were skilled farmers, cultivating crops such as corn, beans, and squash. They developed an extensive trade network, exchanging goods with neighboring cultures, including the HOHOKAM, Mogollon, and ancestral Puebloans. The appearance of the Salado phenomenon in the Tonto Basin is characterized by, among many things, the widespread construction of wall-enclosed compound settlements that contain socially integrative architecture, such as elevated platform mounds. Their settlements often had centralized public spaces, such as plazas or ball courts, suggesting communal gatherings and potentially ceremonial activities. The Salado people exhibited unique cultural traits, including multi-level adobe and masonry buildings, cliff houses, defensive or compound walls, and polychrome pottery. Though primarily based in central Arizona's Tonto Basin, the Salado's polychrome ceramics and symbols extended throughout the Southwest. They had extensive trade networks, and their pottery has been found in locations far from their central habitat. At their zenith, Salado polychrome pottery spread across a 130,000 square kilometer region in central Arizona, southwest New Mexico, and then into the northern Mexican states of Sonora and Chihuahua. The Salado people are known not only for their distinctive polychrome pottery, but for a cultural shift towards increased social complexity and specialization. Act 2. Analysis of the unique identities and customs of the HOHOKAM and Salado cultures. The HOHOKAM were unique in North America as they depended on irrigation canals for their crop watering needs. Their homeland, the arid desert regions of the Salt and Gila River valleys, did not receive sufficient rainfall for crop cultivation. In response to this challenge, the HOHOKAM developed the most complex and expansive irrigation system found in the Americas. The canals were meticulously planned and laid out on the terrain to achieve a downhill gradient of 1 to 2 feet per mile. Some of these canals were extraordinarily large. By common era 1300, the HOHOKAM's irrigation systems, watering up to 110,000 acres, supported the most populous society in the prehistoric Southwest. Agriculture was a central aspect of life for the HOHOKAM, requiring the communal organization and labor of thousands to construct, maintain, and operate the canals. Farmers were responsible for tending the fields and managing the irrigation gates at the correct times. They also had to guard crops from pests, such as rabbits and birds. The community would come together during planting and harvest seasons, as these periods required collective effort. It was only during the Classic period that the HOHOKAM could be considered fully sedentary and agriculturally dependent. Whether they were hemmed in by enemies or tethered to an immense and highly productive irrigation system cannot be determined as yet, but their degree of dependence on agricultural products may have reached the point of dietary stress and disease, as suggested by the data from Pueblo Grande. The trade networks of the HOHOKAM and Salado cultures. The HOHOKAM traded goods widely across the American Southwest and Mesoamerica. HOHOKAM cotton and woven goods, such as blankets, were highly prized and fetched a good price in the exchange networks. Shell bracelets, pendants, rings, and other objects made of shell from the Gulf of California were traded into the HOHOKAM area. Pendants and other objects made from turquoise were traded from many different sources into the HOHOKAM heartland. Ceramic pots were traded widely, and it is not unusual to find vessels made in northern, southern, and eastern Arizona in local HOHOKAM sites. Many of these traded ceramics are unusual shapes, such as canteens and zoomorphic effigy pots. In addition to tangible items, the HOHOKAM trading system would have also facilitated the exchange of cultural influences. The HOHOKAM's belief systems and societal norms seem to have evolved over time, likely influenced by their interactions with different cultures via trade. Evidence from HOHOKAM material culture suggests that they engaged in religious and social status events with communities far beyond their immediate sphere, including those in Mexico. Act 3, Architecture and Social Inclusion. Part 1, Architectural Features that Promote Social Inclusion. HOHOKAM and SALADO ball courts. A distinctive feature of HOHOKAM culture is the ball court, an oval, bowl-like depression in the ground that typically measures 100 feet in length and 50 feet in width, although sizes can vary. These courts were created by excavating the oval's interior and using the extracted soil to form a surrounding embankment, which could reach up to 9 feet in height. It is believed that players participated in a type of ball game within this oval, while spectators watched from the top of the embankment. More than 200 ball courts have been discovered in the HOHOKAM region, over 30 of which are located in the Salt River Valley. Most sizable villages in the region had ball courts, equating to roughly 1 every 3 miles in densely populated areas, including 1 each at Casa Grande Ruin and Snaketown, and up to 3 at the Pueblo Grande Platform Mound in what is now downtown Phoenix. Unrestricted access to these ball courts indicates that the games held within them were attended by members of the surrounding community. A continuous spatial distribution of ball courts linked HOHOKAM settlements together into a regional system. Archaeologists generally infer that this was a network of geographically separate and most likely unrelated populations dependent on one another through their shared participation in ritual and social events, as well as the exchanging of goods, including raw materials and finished products. By Common Era 1200, use of ball courts had virtually ceased. In their place appeared large earthen and rock mounds that initially served as platforms for public ceremonies, and eventually possibly became residences of elite households. Archaeologists used the distributions of ball courts and platform mounds to document the extent of regional interaction during the pre-classic and classic periods, though ball courts and platform mounds function in very different ways. Ball courts are believed to have integrated diverse populations from distant locations, facilitating the exchange of commodities from different environments. By contrast, platform mounds were symbolic edifices of inward-focused and boundary-maintaining communities. Platform mounds. Platform mounds were part of a highly structured settlement system closely linked to the classic period canal networks. Spaced at regular intervals along canals, they were ideally positioned to facilitate communication and decision-making with respect to irrigation management. Platform mounds also may have been the focus of elaborate ritual systems that served as a spiritual means of coping with environmental and economic uncertainty, or as communal storage facilities. Each platform mound symbolized the link between the canals and the cultivated fields within its view. The purpose of the platform mounds continues to be a topic of debate among archaeologists. Questions such as whether people lived on them and whether their function evolved over time remain. However, there's a general consensus that platform mounds had a ceremonial purpose. The belief system related to platform mounds was likely less inclusive than that of ball courts, due to restrictions on who could participate and limited access to ceremonial areas. Nevertheless, most villages from this period had at least one mound, indicating their participation in the broader group identity and its ideology. In the Tonto Basin, rare and non-local materials, for example turquoise, obsidian, shell, and imported shell jewelry, are found in greater frequencies atop platform mounds. As Richard Torello writes in Ancient Households of the Americas, evidence suggests that most platform mounds were constructed by local populations with the intent of integrating Puebloan migrant communities by serving as formalized locations for interaction. For example, exchange, feasting, social discourse, and mound-related rituals. Here, integrative communities held in the mound precincts served to create shared kinship and settlement ties between otherwise unconnected migrant and local groups. Act 3, Part 2, Examination of specific examples of prehistoric Southwestern architecture that demonstrate social inclusion and integration. Casa Grande. Casa Grande, also known as Great House in Spanish, refers to an archaeological site located in present-day Coolidge, Arizona. It is one of the most well-known and significant ruins associated with the HOHOKAM culture. A HOHOKAM, big or great house, bore architectural similarities to a platform mound, and it's possible they fulfilled similar functions. Although these were multi-level structures, the foundation was a raised platform mound that supported the remaining portions of the building. Similar to platform mounds, these buildings were also enclosed within a compound wall. Casa Grande is believed to have been occupied by the HOHOKAM people from approximately 800 CE to 1450. The site is located in a valley near the Gila River, which was a major source of water for the HOHOKAM. Casa Grande is believed to have been an important center of trade and commerce for the HOHOKAM people. The site is located near several major trade routes, and archaeological evidence suggests that the HOHOKAM traded with neighboring cultures, including the ancestral Puebloans and the Mogollon. The site is characterized by a large central plaza surrounded by a series of smaller structures. The structures were built using a combination of adobe brick and stone, and were designed to accommodate a variety of activities, including residential, ceremonial, and administrative functions. Casa Grande is recognized for its large, multi-storied adobe structure, which served as a centerpiece of the community. The structure stands about 4 stories high, with the exterior walls reaching a height of nearly 40 feet. The purpose and function of Casa Grande have been the subject of ongoing research and debate. The architectural design and layout of Casa Grande demonstrate advanced engineering and construction techniques, showcasing the HOHOKAM people's expertise in adobe brick construction. The building consists of thick adobe walls, some reaching up to 3 feet in thickness. The adobe bricks used in this construction were made from a mixture of local clay, water, and organic materials such as straw. The interior of the structure contains a series of rooms, likely used for various purposes, such as living quarters, storage, or ceremonial activities. Casa Grande is also notable for its unique architectural features. The building aligns with the cardinal directions and displays several openings that are believed to have been used for astronomical observations. These openings may have facilitated the tracking of celestial events, such as solstices and equinoxes, playing a role in HOHOKAM cosmology and religious practices, as well as agriculture. Casa Grande stands as a testament to the architectural achievements and cultural significance of the HOHOKAM people, offering valuable insights into their social organization, religious practices, and interactions with the surrounding environment. Pueblo Grande. Pueblo Grande is an archaeological site located in Phoenix, Arizona that represents the remains of a HOHOKAM community. Pueblo Grande is one of the largest and most important HOHOKAM archaeological sites. The site covers an area of about 60 acres and includes a platform mound, an extensive canal system, residential structures, and various artifacts. It was first occupied around Common Era 450 and reached its peak between 1150 and 1450 during the HOHOKAM Classic period. Pueblo Grande's platform mound is a prominent feature of the site. It was constructed by piling layers of earth, adobe, and other materials to create a raised platform. It served as a ceremonial and civic center for the community, possibly hosting religious ceremonies, community gatherings, or even the homes of important individuals. The HOHOKAM people at Pueblo Grande constructed an extensive canal system that played a vital role in their agricultural activities. The system at Pueblo Grande allowed them to harness water from the Salt River, facilitating the cultivation of crops in their desert environment. The residential structures at Pueblo Grande consisted of small, clustered dwellings made from adobe bricks and thatch. Artifacts found at Pueblo Grande provide insights into the daily life and practices of the HOHOKAM people. These artifacts include pottery, stone tools, shell jewelry, and agricultural implements. Excavations at the site have revealed intricate pottery designs and other decorative items, highlighting the artistic skills and cultural expressions of the HOHOKAM people. Pueblo Grande provides valuable insights into the social organization, architectural practices, agricultural techniques, and artistic expressions of the HOHOKAM people. The Salado community at Tonto Cliff Dwellings. Tonto National Monument is a protected area located in central Arizona that preserves significant archaeological sites associated with the Salado culture. The monument, situated within the Tonto Basin on the northeastern edge of the Sonoran Desert in Arizona, encompasses rugged canyon and cliff terrain along the Salt River. The name Salado comes from Rio Salado, Salt River, which was the central habitat of this culture. The monument is home to two well-preserved cliff dwellings of the Salado culture, who were farmers from the 13th to the 15th century. The Salado people are thought to be ancestors of the Pima and the Tohono O'odham people living in Arizona today. Act 3, Part 3, Zoomorphic Figurines and Social Ritual. Zoomorphic figurines. HOHOKAM and Salado platform mounds, which probably served to integrate communities, were the site of diverse ritual activities that also reflected the importance of animals in prehistoric southwestern lives. Ritual fauna figurines have been found clustered inside the public architecture of the HOHOKAM and Salado communities. There is evidence that animals were utilized in public rituals, as a means of social integration amongst non-local Tonto Basin Salado communities. As Christopher Schwartz, in A Contextual Analysis of Ritual Fauna and Socially Integrative Architecture in the Tonto Basin, writes, "The role of ritual in these small-scale societies of the Southwest is particularly interesting given the implications for integrating diverse communities through these activities, in addition to these cultures' well-defined architectural spaces for the performance of communal rituals. To these prehistoric people, animals were important not just for their subsistence value, but also for the production of ritual paraphernalia and the actual performance of communal ceremonies." Act 4. Conclusion. The existence of numerous large-scale, monumental, or public buildings in many HOHOKAM and Salado villages suggests that these desert agriculturists were prosperous enough in their subsistence efforts that they could devote time to constructing architectural structures beyond those for basic living necessities. Moreover, it's likely that this architecture represented significant aspects of their belief systems and fostered social connectivity. It wouldn't be far-fetched to suggest that the connections formed during events held at the HOHOKAM public buildings enabled people to move their residences within the same irrigation network, across different networks, or even between various river valleys. People likely didn't relocate randomly or to unfamiliar territories. Instead, they probably shifted to places where they had already built connections with the local inhabitants. Interestingly, the majority of newcomers to Pueblo Grande during the Classic period integrated into existing residential groups instead of creating new ones, implying that they were acquainted with and accepted by the current residents. Around 1280 CE, there's evidence of heightened social and material exchanges across the Southwest, potentially stemming from mutual belief systems. This may have driven the emergence or sustained use of public architecture, such as enclosed plazas, platform mounds, ball courts, and public rooms, which were potentially a manifestation of these newly shared ideologies. In conclusion, while these neighboring communities may not have shared cultural origins, their geographical closeness led to interactions and the fostering of an inclusive ideology. This ideology of inclusion materialized in what we now recognize as traits of the HOHOKAM and Salado cultures.